Do you know, I can't believe it's Thursday, it's 6 o'clock. It's time again for the ABC of CBD. I am so thrilled. We're into our second year, all through the genius work of Oliver Mammon and his gang. He finds all the guests. I keep saying, look, I'm just a passenger here, but you can take the training wheels off your bicycle, but you just won't. Thank you so much for joining us. So without, I can't believe we're into year 2. How exciting. Without further ado, here is the hunk of hemp, the count of cannabinoids, Ollie Mammon.
Hey guys, how you doing? Thank you for joining us on episode 54. Wow. Can't believe
Wowza.
it. Can't believe
How
it.
cool
It's
is that?
amazing.
Episode 54. Without further ado, let's have a quick word from our sponsor and then crack on with episode. I'm stunned, Ollie. I got to be honest. Episode
ridiculous.
54. Let's have a quick word from our sponsor.
I'm sure you've heard before that good quality CBD needs to be really, really expensive. This is the new view of CBD. A product created by users for users. A product at an affordable price, available everywhere, at any time, at the simple click of a button. Just CBD and MCT oil. No additives, no preservatives, and no flavor enhancers. It's a simple subscription-based service. The cleanest possible CBD delivered to your door for the lowest possible price. Your product, your rights for the lowest possible price.
Wow, so just like that, it's magic, isn't it?
I love it.
Week 50 is still the coolest advert.
The
Week
ABC
54.
of CBD, live on Men's Radio.
I know,
54
it's-
weeks we've been
I
doing
know,
this, Russ.
it's great.
It's
And
incredible.
while we've got you, a quick little thing. If you could go to our the Men's Radio website, the YouTube channel on Men's Radio, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. I'd really be grateful. It'll take you a maximum of 10 seconds. Knock yourself out 15 seconds, but it makes a big difference to us. Anyway, enough from me. Over to you. Ol, go on.
What's up, everybody? I can't believe we've hit episode 54. I can't believe it's Thursday evening, and I can't believe I get to join you guys again. And this is still going. It's amazing. Today, we're actually joined by a gentleman by the name of Mr. David Baddick. We carry on pushing through the subjects of cannabis education this week with our focus on those who educate, share, and guide. Over the last several weeks, we've been joined by, I'm going to read my little notes here, okay, just in case you see me looking to the side. Over the last several weeks, we've been joined by some of my fellow educators, content creators, and cannabis guides who have either helped others circumnavigate this sometimes complicated space or brought a little insight to the possibilities of cannabis-derived ingredients and what the bigger picture actually is. Today, we are joined by another terrific guest, David Baddick. He is the CEO of Drug Sciences. Drug Sciences, for all of you who know, is a very special research organization. They are actually a relatively broad research organization, and their view of medicine is right up my alley. They're on a mission to raise the populace of legal medical cannabis users in the UK, improving access, improving affordability. With a patient-focused approach to medical cannabis, they really are a one-of-a-kind company in the UK. David is at the top of this organizational tree. He is the CEO of this organization. He works closely with the wonderful Professor Barnes, who we've had on the show, the legendary Dr. Nutt, who we aim to get on the show in the future, along with a plethora of other doctors whom are working tirelessly to provide cannabis prescriptions to those who want them, need them, and deserve them. I know several people who have already benefited from the services offered by Drug Sciences. Patients who were lost between the rock and the hard place, who found their way with Drug Sciences. This organization is a terrific one. They need to be recognized as such, and they need to be supported. I really wanted to shine a light on what they do because I know many of you will benefit from the service they offer, or you may have a loved one who will benefit from the services Drug Sciences have to offer. If you have a friend in pain, if you have a loved one who is suffering, if they have tried every pharmaceutical option and they are still just not right, maybe they have not tried medical cannabis, maybe they should contact Drug Sciences. For all you silent, closeted, self-labeled medical stoners who don't think you deserve a legal prescription, you probably do. Think of all the reasons why you consume cannabis. You probably do it for medical reasons. You don't need to do it illegally anymore. Companies like Drug Science, specifically Drug Sciences, want to bring you past that thin gray line into the world of white where you don't have to be afraid anymore. Organizations like Drug Scientists are here for you to find an open legal path to the medicine you choose to hide or the medicine you don't know you need. In this brand new world, brand new organizations are needed to help guide us through this world of convoluted, changed laws. And companies like Drug Sciences, people like David Baddick and the team who surround him are imperative to our cannabis journey in the UK. So I want to say thank you so much to David for even agreeing to join us. And we're going to have an incredible chat today.
Hi there. Thanks for that, Ollie. What a great introduction that was.
See, I reckon I can take clips of everyone saying, what a great introduction. And that is literally my CV for writing introductions.
If all else fails, Ollie, you could be a professional introduction scriptwriter. Just that.
You're incredible, David.
I think that's right. Well,
say what you want to say.
Thank you very much. Can you remind me how many weeks you've been doing this? I didn't quite catch
54.
it. Is it 54? That's right.
Yeah.
That's what you said.
54
it's so exciting, you know. It's groundbreaking, and it's all down to Ollie coming up with the idea. And then we said, well, let's give it a go. And in my head, I thought if it lasts a month, we'll be doing really well. 54 weeks later, it's bigger than ever and nominated for an award over in the United States. So we're very excited by that. So thanks to you, David, to Ollie's enthusiasm and knowledge, but thanks to guests like you coming on board. Really appreciate it.
That's exactly what I was about to say. It's all about the guests, you know, like we're an incredible industry. We've got some amazing, passionate, driven, motivated, educated people at the helms of all these different ships. And one thing I've realized as someone who's heavily involved in the industry outside of this podcast as well, I realized how many voices are just not being heard. And if they are being heard, they're circulated around this echo chamber within the industry. And we all know each other's opinions, but outside of us, people don't know what we're doing. The amount of people who still don't know medical cannabis is a thing in the UK. The amount of people who still don't know drug sciences exists. The amount of people who still don't know CBD is legal is actually insane when you think about it. And what we're trying to do with the help of my incredible colleagues, every single one of the guests has literally made this show. It's just, I'm just a host along with Russ, and you guys basically have given us all the information, the content we need to help educate others. We've been really lucky, and I just want to say it's been an incredible honor to be able to kind of give a voice to the industry like this, and to be able to get people like David on who are doing some amazing things in the industry. I mean, it just gives me kudos that he would even want to come on my show and chat to me about what he's doing. I thought like it's really it's a beautiful thing. So thank you so much.
Nice. It's a pleasure, Ollie. Trust me, and well done for creating that platform, creating that voice, raising the awareness, letting people know the things that we want them to know. So yeah, great stuff for that, definitely.
Well, it's not about me today. It's all about you. And I've got about 15 different questions, which are going to kind of delve deep into the brain of why David does what David does, and into the story behind Drug Sciences and your actions.
Here's your starter for 10. No conferring. David Baddick, Oxford.
I'm here by myself, so there's nobody to confer with, I'm afraid.
Like
You've got Google. You're not allowed to Google.
Yeah, I won't Google.
I want to see your hands at every moment of time, and I want to make sure you're not communicating with Siri. Fine. So it's usually my first question. What was your first interaction with cannabis? I love just hearing what people's first interactions were.
Definitely. So I should say, firstly, I'm not somebody who uses cannabis for any personal reason, but I have. I guess kind of just going back a step, I have worked in the drug and alcohol treatment sector for many years, or before working to develop services to help people with very severe addiction problems. And so all types of drugs, alcohol, and met literally thousands of people during that time who were in that situation, who were accessing the services that we were providing. And most remarkable of everything, I was witnessing how people with the right support and the right motivation and the right, the right kind of structure around them, they could literally turn their lives around. And it is anybody has the ability to be able to turn their lives around from somewhere which is they're not in a good place, not a healthy place, to somewhere that's much better, and people can start to reintegrate into mainstream life in a very productive way. So I worked in that sector for about 15 years before drug science, like I say. During that time, I became more aware how drug policy wasn't helpful to people in the situations that they found themselves in. Very often, people with these very severe mental health problems or addiction problems were not treated in the way that it should be by the system. The system should treat them with a health condition, and yet often they were treated within the criminal justice system, and that wasn't helpful. So drug policy generally, I realized that it was perhaps causing more harm than it was doing good. And then I started to realize about cannabis during that time. Firstly, that cannabis wasn't the evil, really harmful drug that the media or the government would want us to believe. In fact, it's very different. It's a long way from that. So I kind of started to see that there are more harmful things that people could do, and cannabis is actually not very harmful at all. And then when I joined drug science, we started to focus in some key areas, and one of those key areas, and going back about 3 or 4 years now, we really wanted to help medical cannabis to become something that people knew about, that they could understand what medical cannabis was, what types of conditions it could help, and how we could try to accelerate access of medical cannabis for the patients who need it. This was before the law change, by the way. This is prior to November 2018, and we were already kind of working on trying to establish the evidence base back then. So coming back to a question, what was my first contact with cannabis? I kind of gone on a long roundabout route there.
We love it when people go on their sort of non-prompted rant.
Personal journey. Personal journey.
You get this real transparency. Another thing is this show's completely unedited, which means whatever you say, they're going to hear, and we kind of like that. That's why a lot of the time we'll let people just talk, because the truth which comes out when people are not trying to probe you, it's not an orchestrated answer. I think it's quite lovely. I also love the fact that you didn't come from a cannabis background. I also love the fact that you basically saw all the misconceptions, all the demonizations as being completely false from within the system, which you're completely surrounded by. It's pretty incredible. Yep. It's pretty incredible. I want to ask you a quick question, just because I've been writing notes when you're talking. Most of the addictions you were dealing with were like street addictions or medical addictions. So
especially,
like
yeah, and that's so the services that we so I work for two third sector organizations, so in the charity sector, and they both those organizations provided different levels of support for really kind of the most vulnerable and the most marginalized people in our society. People who have a drug addiction, often opiates, but also alcohol, probably the most common types of addiction. There are others as well. Cannabis is one. You can be addicted to cannabis, by the way. We'll discuss that a bit later. But it was those types of services, people who have kind of reached the bottom rung of the kind of almost at rock bottom. They live on the streets very often, or in hostels, or live a life of crime because that's the only way they can survive. And so it's those types of people that we would help. And there are a lot of people sadly in that situation, and there's not enough. I'm going off on a tangent here, but there is not enough support provided by the state and by society in general for those people who find themselves in that situation through no fault of their own, often because they've had a difficult experience in life, either when they're a child or in adult life, whatever it might be. It's because they've had a difficult experience, and they have complex needs, and they need support. And that's those are the types of people that we. Can
I just jump in, David, for a second?
Sure.
It's not you being at a tangent at all, because this is so central to everything. It's not just ABC of CBD and Ollie's show, but it's everything that we try and do on Men's Radio. One of the things that astounded me, and this is a slight tangent, but I do want to raise it, is that when we've had experts on discussing why are people on the street, and you walk past and think, oh, bloody drug addict or something. That's not the case at all. Many of them, an extraordinary number, and this shocked me on air completely, was when they said they'd come out to their parents as being gay, and the parents had thrown them out.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that's got nothing to do with cannabis, but it's a shocker, isn't it? You there but for fortune.
It's the story behind why someone ended up where they ended up.
Everyone's got a story.
It's so important.
Completely is. I'm very sure that it's not substances that cause people to develop addiction problems or other mental health problems. There's almost always an underlying cause for that, and often it's something like a traumatic experience when they're a child, or there is sort of that unmet need. So like I say, it's somebody who's gay and comes out and they're not supported by the closest people around them. That's a hugely, I mean, that's a traumatic thing.
We've had several guests who have said that to me, David, and on my daily show, and I can't get my head around it. I really can't. Throwing your child out of the house for whatever reason, it's amazing. But anyway, that's life, and we have to address it, and we have to try and do things about it. And of course, the other thing, David, which I'm sure with your previous work you must have encountered, was the number of people, men and women, who have served their country, this country, in the armed forces, come back and been treated like trash. Which I find so upsetting.
I totally agree. I mean, here are people who again have gone through incredibly traumatic episodes and causes severe mental health problems like PTSD. And there are some great charities that are kind of plugging that gap, but surely there should be state support, more state support for that.
Especially when someone gives their life for the state, as in whether that's a life they die or their life they've still given it and they come back with their life. They've still given a moment of their life for the state, for the country. The country should step up to the plate for them.
Yep.
And it drives me mental in the UK about how we have no respect for any of our veterans. The word veteran doesn't work here.
I know. I worked for many years with what was called the Army Benevolent Fund, and then it became the Soldiers Charity. And so I have first-hand experience of this. I was very, very passionate about it. I have no military background, neither did my family, but I think if you're asking somebody, as you've found in your work, David, to possibly pay the ultimate sacrifice, which is not getting on the tube in the morning, I mean, going to work, show them some respect. That's all. That's all. Sorry, I'm off my high horse. I apologize. I'm sorry.
No, listen, I think it's something we all agree with. I think please don't apologize. I think it's something we all agree with. I'm pretty sure it's something all of our listeners will agree with. And if they don't agree with it, then I'm very, very sorry. But it's something which all three of us do. So we're going to move on with the show now, just to might as well, because we could talk about this all day. And I would actually feel comfortable talking about this all day, but I get one chance to talk to David, and I want to extract as much information from him as possible. So you're in this space where you're working with addiction therapies and you're working with that. How did you transition into cannabis? You started telling us that you started working with drug scientists, and you were looking at almost before the legalization. You were looking at potential, you were looking at everything around cannabis. So let's get back onto that topic.
Sure. Yes. So I was very fortunate to be able to take up the post of CEO of Drug Science just almost exactly 4 years ago now. And one of the first things that I did was we decided we wanted to kind of focus on some key areas, and cannabis was like a really obvious one. Partly because Drug Science before I joined Drug Science has produced quite a lot of really helpful scientific information on the kind of the truth about cannabis, the truth about the harms, but also the benefits that it can have in a therapeutic sense. Drug Science actually convinced the World Health Organization to do a review on cannabis, the first time in something like 80 years, and it did that. and as I think as a result of that, and Professor Nutt's, just going about his daily business, and he would talk about, the endocannabinoid system, and he'd be talking about how the cannabis plants can actually be beneficial in a medical way. So because of that, all of that, we started to receive contact from patients or potential patients, and especially families of very ill children with intractable epilepsy. So as an example, Hannah Deacon, who everybody will know, her son
on the show. We've had Hannah on.
I'm sure she has. Hannah is an amazing person.
She's a warrior. She's an absolute warrior and a hero, and she really is just. She's remarkable in this industry. What she does for people out there, like when we spoke to Hannah, the main thing we said to her was like, "Why do you still do this? You've got your kid's prescription," and she was like, "Every kid deserves their prescription." She's Absolutely. An incredible woman, just literally an incredible woman. I want to swear to emphasize how amazing she actually is, but I'm not going to do that. That's how good she is.
The thing is, Ollie. I mean, everybody who knows Hannah will agree with you 100%. She's a beacon of light for everybody in that respect. I totally agree. Anyway, Hannah came to us, and we started to understand this the situation that Alfie was in, and the difficulty in accessing legal medical cannabis, having to go and live in the Netherlands and spend a huge amount of money just to ensure the safety of her child. This is something that kind of, when you first hear this, it kind of just is like I don't know what, like a bullet through the heart or something. A heart just kind of like almost disintegrates when you hear about this. And we just thought, from a scientific point of view, there's something that we've got to offer here. So we set up various things, but we set up a medical cannabis working group where which is still thriving today, which is a collaboration of sort of the key stakeholders in the medical cannabis space. So that includes industry partners who are very important stakeholders. They're the ones who are producing the medicine, policy specialists, the scientific and academic expertise that we have at Drug Science, and patients, all coming together to with the aim of wanting to improve and accelerate access of medical cannabis for everybody who needs it here in the UK, and doing it from doing it through the lens of putting patients first. It's patient needs coming first, not companies just trying to maximize profits, or not companies just kind of like focusing on sort of the low-hanging fruits, the easy ones to kind of access, the ones that are easy to prescribe to, perhaps. We want to do it for everybody who needs it, children with epilepsy, but then all patients with different conditions that they have. So we set that group up, and from that group has really blossomed a few kind of very key initiatives, which I'm sure we're going to talk about in a bit more detail.
Amazing. It's actually, you answered question 3 again, which was, what does Drug Sciences actually do? So that's now been answered. So what I actually wanted to talk about, because you mentioned it already, so there's still a negative stigma around cannabis, okay? It still exists out there. Now, it's actually quite funny. I met a lady in the park the other day. I was having my little standard, walking my doggy, smoking a joint, and she comes up to me, and I thought she was going to say something like, "Why are you doing that?" Okay, but she actually comes up, she goes, "I smoke weed every night." And I was like, "Okay, cool, good for you." And she was like, "If you ever see me with my husband, don't bring it up." And I was like, "All right, why are you telling me?" She was like, "I just wanted you to know. I've been secret about it for 30 years. And I just wanted to I just saw how open you are, and I wanted you to know that I also do it too." And I was like, "Why do you smoke?" And she was like, "Well, I can't sleep without it." I was like, "Well, so you have insomnia?" She was like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Well, what happens if you don't smoke?" She goes, "Well, I don't sleep." I was like, "What do you mean you don't sleep?" She goes, "I just don't sleep." And I was like, "So that's a medical issue?" And she was like, "Yeah." I was like, "Why don't you go get a prescription? Do it legally. And then you can almost have the shield of honesty, the shield of truth to hide behind, and not have to be a criminal, and not have to hide it from your husband." And she was like, "Oh, no, I'm not going to do that. cannabis is wrong. And I was like, but you just told me that without it, you wouldn't be able to get to sleep. And I'm like, so she is a cannabis user. She would probably make other people feel bad for consuming cannabis. Do you understand what I mean? Because because that's her mindset. She's so scared of being demonized. She's so scared of being labeled that she has kind of manifested this facade of I smoke, but I don't smoke. And she's got her reasons, but she just won't push forward.
My question here, Oliver, is this. She's been married for we don't know how long. She's been smoking this every night for 30. Does he walk around with a clothes peg on his nose or something? How does that work?
I literally can't get my head around it.
I walk my dog here. I got to tell you, David, every 200 yards, blimey, you got to whip. No, I don't. As Ollie knows, I don't touch drugs of any description. I don't smoke cannabis. I just don't do it. So it makes me laugh, really, because I don't need to. I can just walk my dog every day and woof.
Yeah.
Right in London, blimey.
I just think it's funny that she used it for medicinal reasons. We live in a country where medicinal cannabis is legit. Yeah. She's obviously terrified of getting in trouble, so she has this way now of not getting in trouble, and she's still terrified to kind of push forward with it. And that's the world we live in. Have you found that? So working within the organization, especially coming from a world which saw drugs as being so bad, and now being in a place which sees drugs as being so good, do you feel that almost the demonization which you didn't understand from your previous world is still carried forward into this new world?
It definitely does, and I think stigma. We are making lots of progress, particularly with cannabis. I think that's one particular drug which I think there is much more acceptance of now, which is great. Society has a much better understanding. Not where it needs to be, for sure, but it is moving in the right direction. But the point is that I think that's exactly what a lot of people still think, right? That cannabis, what we've been told for 50 years and more, cannabis is a very bad drug. You're a very bad person if you do it. It can cause real harm. It will send you psychotic. You'll go to jail. All these things is what people still think. And so, I think that example was you could probably find many people same type of thing. And as we know, medical cannabis is a legally prescribed drug that helps people with a whole range of different conditions. And that is fact. It's legal. Really not many people know about it. Not many people at all know about it.
So last week, actually over the last few weeks, but last week we had Guy Coxall on the show, and he was talking about how he just wrote a report, and he's been doing a lot of defense of people who have been caught driving. Now, like he said, he's not pro anyone driving under the influence of cannabis. If he thinks that you're intoxicated while driving, he will not offer you any help. However, there are medical cannabis patients who consumed cannabis yesterday, drive today, can get pulled over, will fail the drug test. And apparently one of the police officers, when the patient showed her prescription, was like, well, this is a lie. Like, this doesn't exist. What do we do? Does it exist? This is like my prescription. Yeah. Nice little Photoshop. It's mental. It's like the barriers we have to go against. I said last week on the show, it's kind of, we live in a world where rules are there to be followed. And if a new rule is created, then that new rule takes precedence over the old rule. And that's the rule that we need to follow. The old rule is no longer a rule, and the new rule is the current rule. And we kind of live in a world where new rules are being implemented, but it's almost the old rules are still being followed.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Is that the people who enforce the law, which are the police, don't know what the law is, and not blaming the police on that at all, because it's we've got so many barriers to kind of to overcome, so that people do start to understand what the truth is and what the law is and that kind of stuff. Police are included in that, but that's the society that we're in. The police don't know that a medical prescription for cannabis is legal, and instead they're trying to take them into the.
What would happen? What would happen, David, if that then went to court?
Well, it wouldn't get through. It wouldn't get through. As far as I don't know that there has ever been any sort of court action against somebody with a legal prescription? You might know, I don't know, but
so Guy said that the woman who was caught did have some leniency, but she wasn't given an innocent plea. They still said you had cannabis in your system, and therefore we have removed your driving license. So she still got in trouble for being under the influence of cannabis whilst driving, even though she wasn't under the influence.
So perhaps that's the grey areas that she was driving, and I think there isn't. I mean, it's great that report has been done, because there probably isn't enough information or evidence around driving under the influence and what it means, and if you are a medical cannabis user, you're not a recreational user, what does that mean? So it's a grey area, isn't it? It's
very hard. Now, listen, I'm also like, I don't think that anyone who smokes should drive. I think it's a very stupid thing to do, and if like A, for your legal safety, B, for your ability to drive. If you get caught, you'll lose it. C, for the danger which you bring onto other road users. I don't think it's smart. However, I do believe that if I smoked the day before, I should be allowed to drive tomorrow, especially if I'm a medical patient. That shouldn't be that medical license shouldn't be almost a red flag on my name, which means the policeman can stop me at any moment of time, drug test me, and know I'll fail the test, because that's what happens with blood dosages. It stays in your system for 3 months. Do you know what I mean? There will always be trace elements. So it's just quite difficult.
Really? I had no idea.
So cannabinoids are a fact. So talk.
Educate me here, because say you went on an absolute bender and you got smashed and you had a terrible hangover and you got pulled over the next day, you would still be over the limit. And quite rightly, you'd have a problem. I don't have any sympathy for that. You should be careful. Get an Uber or whatever. I know it's not always easy, but you're still hungover, etc. But like in a few hours or whatever, I don't know the exact amount. Please don't quote me. It'll go. So I'm astounded. I know you've mentioned it before, Ollie, but I didn't realize it was such a long sort of shelf life, if I can put it that way. That if you have a joint, how long is it in your system? You said 3 months. Am I going mad?
So if you take a strand of my hair. Okay, if I stopped smoking for 3 months and you took a strand of my hair, I've got very long hair. I've got 8 years worth of trace elements of cannabinoids in my hair. You'll be able to tell I was a cannabis user. Now, if you were to come and take a sample of my blood 1 day, 2 days, 3 days after I've consumed cannabis, there is a very high chance that the legal amount of THC in my blood will be over the legal amount which you're allowed to drive in. I will be seen as being intoxicated and I will lose my license. The reason for this is cannabinoids are fats. They're stored as a fat in our body. They break down slowly over time, like most fats, but that's what cannabinoids are. And our body has this way of retaining them because our body actually needs them. So it wants to hold on to them. So you've got these cannabinoids floating through your system that your body thinks it's doing good by holding on to. But in reality, it's the testing measures are not made to test what they're testing for. The testing measures are made to catch people out. And I'm completely for people driving stupidly to get in trouble. They should not have a license. You should not smoke and drive. You're hotboxing your car. You should go straight to jail, in my opinion. It's not a smart way to behave. However, there are medical patrons out there who are potentially liable to lose jobs, lose careers, be branded as criminals, and lose livelihoods, because as soon as you get branded as a criminal for cannabis consumption, you can't go to America, you can't go to Australia, most of the world you can't go and visit. So it limits your life as a person. Why? Because you're doing something legally, but they've caught you doing something theoretically illegally because the test is not testing correctly. I've ranted now. I want to stay on topic. I feel bad. That was not. You should have been here last week for us. If you were here last week, we wouldn't have had to do that right now. But it's okay. How is everything at Drug Sciences? Project 21, we wanted to get 21,000 people signed up by 2021. I assume COVID made that tough, but how is everything going at Drug Sciences? Numbers going up, patients going up, doctors going up?
Yes. There's certain. So if we talk specifically about cannabis, there's other things that we do at Drug Science, by the way. But, in terms of cannabis, and Project 2021, which is what you're referring to, which is the project that we've set up that provides a framework for people to be able to connect with a doctor, and that doctor prescribes to them, and they get their medicine at a capped price, so it's cheaper than otherwise. So that's the project we've been running for almost 2 years now. It's going really well as far as we're concerned. It's a slow, steady increase in patients and doctors. We would have liked to have seen a much faster rate of that over the last 2 years. There are it's been a funny 2 years. I would say that actually the pandemic though is one of the least reasons why things haven't quite gone as well as we had hoped. In that respect, I think the regulations have been extremely challenging for everybody involved in the industry. Everybody's part of that supply chain. The regulations really are very challenging. We'd hoped that they naturally would have kind of evolved as more patients come forward. Once it was legal, more patients come forward, more doctors being willing to prescribe, more the medical bodies, kind of putting their support behind it, and it's just kind of this edging forward each time. We would like to see that happening much quicker. It's the way things are, but we have now got some absolutely fantastic evidence that shows that medical cannabis has significant health improvements in people who use it, and has life-changing benefits for those people. So we can prove that now with the data that we have. People's quality of life has significantly improved by being prescribed medical cannabis.
Could you go into a few more
Yeah.
details about? I'm obviously not the names, but I mean specific examples of how it's helped, because I think that would be so illuminating.
So with Project 2021, so some of your viewers may or may not know, the way that the project works is when a patient goes to see a doctor, the doctor will prescribe, and at the same time they will take health outcome measures. They'll measure the health of the patient at that moment in time, and that patient sees the doctor on a regular basis, usually every 3 months. And so every 3 months we take the same health outcome measures from that patient, and we effectively monitor their health and track it, whether it's improving or if it was declining. We would monitor that as well. And we have a range of scales which we use, which are all very well recognized, validated scales, depending on the condition that person presents with. So those conditions are, often it's chronic pain and anxiety. Those are the two big ones. But we also see people with Tourette's syndrome, with multiple sclerosis, with epilepsy, with ADHD. I'm ticking all your boxes, Ollie.
No MS and no epilepsy, thank God. But I've got the Tourette's and I've got the brackets on either side.
So sure. Absolutely, all these areas that we already had a very good. We already had a good understanding that medical cannabis could be really helpful. So this is how we track the effectiveness of medical cannabis in that wide cohort of people. Also safety, we look at safety outcomes as well. So if there's an adverse event, we would record the adverse event. We've barely seen anything in that respect, by the way. So and what we've seen at this point in time, and the data is pretty consistent as we go along, but quality of life. So that's general, and every patient fills out the quality of life scale, by the way, and we see that quality of life has improved by 50% in people, and 50% is not. It sounds like a very convenient number. It just happens to be 50%, but it is 50%. So people's quality of life has improved by 50% since they received their since they accessed Project 2021, basically, and that's statistically significant, and that's consistent across all the people who are coming to see us. Within that, we are also analysing specific conditions and looking at other types of more detailed health improvements like sleep and mood, and depression and pain and all these things. And we're also now starting to show, and don't forget, we want to track patients for a period of time to try and make sure it's not a blip, or it's not just kind of the first kind of, oh, I've got my first prescription, and so I
the
just feel
excitement, the excitement and the
Yeah,
joy of the moment, making you feel uplifted as opposed to you actually feeling uplifted.
Absolutely. And this is why, you know, it's big data. Big data is important, and this is why we track over a period of time. But we are showing that we're starting to see that there are very significant health improvements in each of those areas as a result. And this data has not existed in the UK before. This is the other parts of the world have been doing this to some degree or another. Not enough, but it is there. We haven't had it in the UK before, and this is the first time that we've been able to show this in a scientific, evidence-based way, that medical cannabis is beneficial.
I'm glad you said that, because I've actually got that written. That was my next point, was like, nothing like this has ever been done in the UK or tried. It's never been tried. Because the fact that it is very important to go back to the beginning of what you said. You're a research organization. You're not a corporate capitalist organization. This isn't about making a business which earns you money. This is about a patient-focused approach to providing people options, education, guidance when it comes to medical cannabis. And it's actually remarkable when you think about it, and it's probably the reason why your growth has been relatively organic, and your growth has been relatively, I want to call it, you know, it's like building a house. The foundation comes first, and it's grown almost as the market has grown, as opposed to you being able to throw £1 million worth of marketing behind it, knowing you're going to get £3 million worth of patients back. You're not running it like a business. You know, what's it called? £1 million of SEO brings you back £5 million of sales. It doesn't work that way. So I think it's quite important. Who's actually involved though in this Project 21? You know, universities, doctors, any government organizations? Who's actually, like, who makes this? Because I understand, like, the more we hear it, the more you think, like, how much stress must be on your shoulders, guys, to be able to organize something like this. I'm just thinking, who must be involved? It must be so many of you. And if there's not, you guys are incredible. You guys are incredible anyway.
Well, thank you, Ollie. Let me come on to that. Just kind of get back to one quick point there. You just mentioned essentially drug science is a charity. That's it. So that's why we don't make any profit. Our aim is not to make any profit at all. We are not for profit. We're a charity. We don't have investors who pump money into us, and then we can, like you say, spend loads of money and see loads of return. That's not how it works at all. We are a small charity. We have a team at the moment. We have something like nine members of the team, I think. That's it. And we just, we live in the sort of charity world where it's funding is like one of our primary concerns. We always have to try and find funding, just the nature of what we do. But with that comes a lot of good stuff. We're doing it for all the right reasons. And as I say, patients are at the very heart of everything that we do for sure. In terms of who's running 2021, so I should say that
it's you. It's all you.
Well, it's me. It's not all me, Ollie, at all. It's me. It's my team. We've been working together for 2 years now. When we started, I'll be completely honest. We did not know how challenging it was going to be to deliver this project. We could not have expected some of the things that we've had to encounter along the way, the way in which the opposition that we were going to come up against.
What do you mean by that? Can you give us a bit more insight? Because I'm unaware of this. I thought all of our viewers are.
Yeah, sure. So we I think we, like many others, felt that when the law changed back in November 2018, that was going to be sort of the green lights for the whole medical community to kind of accept and embrace and understand that the law has changed for a very good reason, and there are going to be a lot of people who are going to benefit, and it was this wonderful thing. And instead, I think there are big sections of the medical community who have refused to even entertain that, or to even take the time to try and understand why medical cannabis is something that is that really is something that we need. And there is opposition from certain sections of the medical community, vehement opposition to medical cannabis. So that's one.
Like
Then
doctors or like organizations, as in like, I know that the what's it called? We had Tanil Montgomery came on, and so did Matt Hughes came on. We had a few people. They were talking about the issues they were facing with the
BPNA.
Exactly. Sorry, I was just trying to get the acronym right. The BPNA, exactly, and the issues with them. Is that what you're talking about? Like organizations like that? Or are you talking about actual GPs or actual specialist doctors, or are you talking about everyone?
Everyone. Although I wouldn't. I mean, I mean, this end of the scale is countered by this end of the scale, which is the opposite to that. And there are many people who are doing amazing stuff to try and make this change happen, just like we are. But there are organisations like the BPNA who kind of refusing to look at the evidence that we have, but are sticking to their mantra that we don't know whether it's harmful or not, even though the evidence. So the BPNA is the British Pediatric Neurological Association, I think. So that's children with severe epilepsy, children whose lives are at risk, significant risk because of their epilepsy, and they refuse to accept the evidence that we've produced and others have produced to show that that's not the case. But they won't look at it. And
international as well. So it's happening. It's like with the epileptic kids, you've got probably 60 countries around the world with probably 60 kids as case studies in each country where it's proved to be working, and you've got 60 different supply chains, and the product works. It's not about a specific blend of cannabinoids. Do you understand what I mean? It's like that specific that ratio, whether it's minor or not, seems to do the trick. It seems to work, and it's happening all over the world with either kids like Hannah, kids like Hannah's kid, or with adults as well. One of your patients is a gentleman by the name of Edward Granger. We've had him on the show. He loves your service. He's a big fan of you guys. He had problems going through the private prescriptions, and you guys basically really took care of him. And he said it's probably the first time in his life, being an epileptic adult, that his doctor actually cares. And I was like, what do you mean? He goes, well, I've had a doctor for 20 years. I don't think my doctors ever cared about me the way drug sciences care about me. And not only is my doctor asking me about the cannabis medicine, because he does a complementary treatment where he's using epilepsy pharmaceuticals as well as cannabis for epilepsy. And he said the doctor is literally taking his entire world of medicine and takes it all into consideration, not only what that doctor's prescribing him, but also what other doctors are prescribing him and what other doctors have. And he's saying he's never experienced that from a doctor before who actually wants to know what's going on with him. And it just blew me away. It kind of brought a tear to my eye when he said it, because I was pushing him to go to you guys, but I didn't know you guys were going to give him that service. And the fact that you guys even do that on a shoestring budget and with limited resources, the fact that you even care that much. I mean, as a patient, as a sufferer, as someone with Tourette syndrome, all I want to do is just look at you guys and say thank you so much for everything you're doing for me and my fellow sufferers out there, for every patient out there who needs help and guidance. Dude, you are incredible. It's very important. I just threw that out there. I was very sorry. It's a bit, but it's very important.
Thank you, Ollie. That's lovely for you to say that. We know that there is so much change that still needs to happen, and we'll keep going until that happens, and it will happen. It's not a question of if it will happen, it's just a question
when.
of when. And that's why we say in our that's why I say we're here to improve access, but also to accelerate access, because there are too many people who are going to suffer potentially life-changing ways whilst the whole kind of medical world slowly kind of gets into gear and embraces cannabis as the medicine that it is, and that's the way it should be looked at, as it's a medicine, not a drug to get high and have a good time, which it may be, but it is a medicine. But that's simple as, really.
Russ, I'm loving these quotes you're pulling up, by the way, just to let you know. I know you're sitting there silently. I want to let you know I'm loving these quotes. That David, that one was incredible, because the guy is an absolute legend who deserves to be praised, not slandered. The guy is an absolute superstar. And what you just like that single quote referring to what they do, I love it. It's all about the truth about
that's very
drugs.
well. It's kind of like to play my part and impart the information. It's very, very important to get somebody like David on. It's important to show as much support and, if I may say, respect as well. You're a busy guy, and we appreciate you coming on. That's the point.
Oh no,
We don't take these things. We don't take things for granted. And Ollie's on a mission, and it's my job and my duty. It's my pleasure to support him. That's all I got to say on that.
Oh, I love you, Russ. I really do. I've
Yes,
missed you, man.
easy.
I've missed you.
But
It's like
David, David, let me just point one thing out to you. All right, Ollie has Tourette's. So we've never actually met. We've worked together now. We've spoken for I don't know how many hundreds and hundreds of hours on the phone and everything as well. So imagine my feeling saying, yeah, let's give a guy with Tourette's his own radio show, which is uncensored and 100% live.
I think it's brilliant.
It's just hilarious.
I think you're very brave, Russ. I think you're very, very brave.
Well, it's paid off. It's paid off. It is worth its weight in gold. It just makes me laugh. I mean, it's not a funny subject.
You're a brave man. It's hilarious. You're brave as hell.
It's kind of you got to look at some things in life and just go, what the heck? It's kind of funny. It's funny.
It's my superpower.
But something like Tourette's doesn't stop you from doing anything you want to do, does it?
That's the point.
Yeah,
that's the point. If we're a radio station based around mental health and well-being, what kind of person would I be as co-founder to say, oh, I can't have him, he's got Tourette's?
Also, bear in mind,
not very inclusive, is it?
My obsessive compulsive disorder really does bring gold out of this show, as in the notes I write for these shows and stuff. I mean, I spend hours planning these things, and I spoke to you for 45 minutes, and then I'll go and do research, and I enjoy it. I think the viewers and the listeners, they deserve, like you said, that truth, and that truth doesn't come from just chatting. You got to find it. You got to dig it out the ground, and
sure.
I enjoy it. So you guys doing anything to train doctors or encourage the acceptance of cannabis? You doing anything to kind of chisel away at the rock hard, ice cold exterior of the British medical practice?
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it, because that's what it feels like, Ollie. I can tell you that for sure.
Dentist pulling teeth, right?
It's like pulling teeth. It's like drawing blood from a stone, whatever analogy you want to use. Yes, we are. We work closely with the Medical Cannabis Clinician Society. As you know, Professor Barnes, he's a part of T21. He's a part of the MCCS. He's a part of lots of really great things.
CIC.
So we have training programs for doctors. Before the pandemic, we were doing educational seminars in the evenings in London and around the country, where we invited doctors to come and just to learn. We put out our information. We try to engage with doctors as much as possible. Leon Barron as well. You'll know Leon from.
Yeah, we've had him on a few times. I like Leon.
He's a great guy. He's great. Yeah, absolutely. And he's. The GPs are such an important part of this. If we can get to the point where GPs are allowed to prescribe, that will be an absolute game changer. I mean, it would solve so many other kind of these barriers and challenges that we've got as well. If GPs could just prescribe to their patients when they came to see them in their surgery, in their community, even if it was still in the private sector, it would still have a huge impact. There are hundreds of thousands of GPs, and just a proportion of them being able to prescribe would just make.
Also, they have the time with their patients. Do you know what I mean? And they get to know.
Yes, they have the one-to-one fate. They have the one-to-one interaction with them.
Yeah, they already know their health situation. They don't
David, what's the big hurdle from GPs talking about this with their patients? I know I've asked this before with other guests, but I do find it bewildering.
It's all the stuff that you won't be surprised. It's the same old stuff. It's stigma and a lack of education. It's those two things, I think. And we're trying to engage GPs just to help them become better educated, I think, in this respect. And once again, no fault of GPs. If any GPs are listening, I didn't mean to sound like I was kind of saying GPs are not educated enough. That's not what I'm trying to say. What I'm trying to say is we want to help them to understand why their patients are perhaps coming to them, asking them about medical cannabis, knowing more about medical cannabis than they do. That needs to change. So there's that, and then stigma, as in all walks of life. Stigma is stopping so many people from sort of taking that next step or allowing that next step to happen. And that is just the bit that we just have to chip away at.
Just to
constantly.
drill down just a fraction. Would it be the head of the actual practice who said, I'm not having this, we're busy enough, or is it down to the individual GP? Because I do find it a fascinating area because it's a big blockage, isn't it?
It's a big blockage. I think again, it's a bit of a boring answer, but it's probably both of those things once again. I think you'll put, surgeries, often there are a group of GPs, and there'll be maybe a practice manager, and so maybe that practice manager has said, well, we do want to get involved in cannabis. That's not us. We don't do that. We can't describe it on the NHS. We're not going to do that. Or there may be individual doctors who, just have.
They've had the opinion for so many years.
Yeah.
Do you know what happens? Do you know what happens when you're so anti something? You spend your life being so anti it, and then one day you try it and you like it, and there's two options. You either get told that you're a hypocrite for the rest of your life, or you stand on that rusty, terrible ground where you've been standing for a while. And I want to say it's like an old man thing, all right? Like I see it with like
steady,
a older
easy
generation.
now.
No,
wait, easy now.
You're different because you want to see the other side of the world. There's so many of your generation want to see the other side of the world, but you also know that so many of your generation are locked in the past. And so many of my generation are educated by your generation who are locked in the past. And what happens is like words mean something to people. So when you're told and told and told that something is bad, it's hard just to click and be like, it was all lies. And that's the problem. It's great.
You know what the joke is, and I think David might agree that my generation, by Pete Townsend, my generation had a pretty damn good time.
Yeah.
So what happened?
And still do.
So what happened?
So it's not.
What happened? The law changed. The law changed.
That's what happened.
And all drugs were banned overnight, literally overnight. And then there's been a media campaign over the last 50 years so it's become hardwired in people's minds and their brains that all drugs are bad and no good can come of them, and it's just simply not true. It's simply
what I said the other day on the Daily Show. You know how this will get resolved? It'll only get resolved through money, and it'll only get resolved when a government of whatever complexion, doesn't matter. I'm not making a political point, but a government and their advisors will say, we are missing a trick here. This is the most fantastic revenue stream. Look what we're getting from tobacco. Look what we get from petrol. We're not going to get that from electricity till, of course, we sucker everyone into an electric car. Then we push the prices through the roof. Too late. Ha ha. But when they see the billions, instead of going to crooks and criminals, right, hanging around on street corners, could be legit and turned into tax, that's how I feel it'll change. I'm not saying that's good, bad, or indifferent. I'm just saying that's honestly how I feel that the major change will come. And then guys like yourself will have you've been chipping away, and then that door will open.
Yeah.
And you'll be there. You'll be there in the forefront.
I think that's right. I think, and from my point of view, I think it's very much a political thing, and at the moment, because of the stigma, because of the lack of knowledge and understanding in the general society, it's not a vote winner, these policies, and the people who vote are there's a certain demographic who vote, and that demographic are the ones who have been told for many, many years that things like cannabis and other drugs are really bad. I think there's a generational shift that will happen, and in the generation beneath us, so hopefully my kids will kind of not accept this rhetoric that we've had for so long, and will be voting behind that, and will vote for a party who has the courage to pin their colours to the mast and say the current drug policy has not worked for many, many years. We need to have a very different way of looking at drug policy. It needs to change. And when there's a party who does that, and the generation understands that, that's when we'll see political change.
Well, you know what, Dave? You know what, David? Two things. Number
Mm.
one, the war on drugs. That
Yeah.
well-known phrase, the war on drugs was lost decades ago,
Ah,
because the real people that they're fighting have infinite wealth, and the governments they're fighting have finite wealth. So that's kind of just a fact of life.
Yeah,
And the other thing, this whole debate will not be advanced unless we have people like you.
Mm.
And I think that's the perfect way to end the program. Seriously, it is only when you get people like you who are eloquent, articulate, intelligent, not hysterical, and start the conversation by saying, look, I don't take drugs. However, this X, Y, and Z, let's look at the science. Let's not look at the hysteria. Let's look at the science. And it's people like you who will carry the day.
Hell
David,
yeah.
thank you so much.
Quick hour.
Another brilliant guest, Ollie Mammon. Bless you. I don't know. You're a miracle worker. These guys are astounding. They astound me every single week. I'm Russ Kane. Thank you so much for joining us. We will be back 6 o'clock next Thursday, same time. Make a date. Till then, stay safe, everybody. Bye.
God bless you.